I want to welcome back a very special guest, UFC middleweight Chris Curtis. Chris, I am so happy to have you back on the channel, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. It's been way too long since we've been on, so it's nice to be back.
Dude, I know it seems like I think I talked to you right before your Jack Hermansson fight. No, actually, I think we talked after your Jack Hermansson fight.
Yeah,
But the year has just flown by. I cannot believe that it's about to be the end of the year already. Can you?
this has been a really fast. It's funny because I'm like, man, it's December. I'm sitting here like, where did this year go, man? Like it. Ooh, you get older, man. Time flies, or maybe it's just like I don't know. Ooh, scary.
Yeah, I know. I was about to say, like, as you get older, nobody tells you time just starts flying by. But you recently had your fight against Joaquin Buckley at UFC 282. You got the second round knockout. I didn't get the chance to talk to you before the fight, but how were you feeling going into that fight? Were you 100% healthy? Was there any issues, anything like that?
Oh fuck no! That camp was rough, man. Like I'm 35 now, so I keep getting hurt doing weird things. Like on one, we I couldn't run that entire camp, which sucked because I went to like this what was it when we were young at the festival when we were young, the emo festival out here. So walking around like hilariously, it's called When We Were Young. It's throwback to emo days because we're all like in our 30s now who are emo kids. And fucking walking around for like 7 hours made me pull. I like tore my calf. So like yeah, I'm like the irony of like when we were young. I'm just walking around not doing shit. I tore muscle in my calf. I couldn't run all camp. That sucked. About 3 weeks before that fight, I fractured my wrist again. The one I fractured when I was gonna fight Dricus. I fractured that again like 3 weeks before the fight. So I'm just like, what else was to go wrong? So like, we uh we hobbled through camp, but I felt confident going in, man. Like you never really go into a fight 100% okay, but I knew I was more than ready, man. I was like, I felt great. Like it's funny because the entire time he's there, he's on tense, he's like hyping himself up, and I'm like, bro, you were way too excited about this. Like I was confident going in. It was everything besides the injuries went pretty well.
Yeah, I was curious about that. I wanted to ask you about that if we talked before the fight. Was there some type of backstory between you and Buckley? Because Buckley seemed awfully fired up to be fighting you. Is there some type of history between you two?
He kind of had he trained with us when he was out here for his was it the Al Hazak whatever fight that was, and then when he fought Albert, I guess he got mad at me because I was training with Albert. I'm like, Albert's my teammate. He lives here. Like he's my teammate. And like I'm fighting Adolfo Vieira. So like I really need a good wrestler grappler and Albert to be prepared for that. And he took that personally. He's like, oh, you trained Albert against me. I'm like, I'm not even thinking about you. Like, oh, so he took that shit to heart. And then he's just somebody who believes his own I think he's starting to fall into that bad habit of believing his own hype a little bit too much. And I guess he's got something to prove, and he felt like I was the guy to prove it on. I was like, I don't know what I did, but it's a really bad pick to like. I want to prove myself. Like I'm not really that guy.
Let me ask you this: going into that fight, I say this going into every single Joaquin Buckley fight. I am so tired of seeing that Impa Kasangane like spinning back KO. Are you tired of seeing that at this point? Like in the lead up to the fight, I'm sure you probably seen it and all the
Oh,
promotion going on.
God. So like, it's hilariously before the fight, we're doing like the meet with the broadcast, whatever. They ask you their questions, and Daniel Cormier asked me about it. He's like, "How do you feel about it?" I was like, "Look, man, like, not to be a dick, he made his name off of one moment. This was one kick, and like realistically, it was a cool kick, but it only happened because Impa has a fight IQ of like a small orangutan, to where like like, he can do it, but he's gonna make mistakes. Like it's like like a chimp typing. Like he can type some shit in there. There's gonna be a lot of fuck ups, and like who you don't hold on to a caught ankle and just look at a man that was Impa. Impa did that to himself. And outside that moment, what amazing shit has Joaquin Buckley done to where you're like, my God, that's amazing.
That is true.
Like
Well,
what? Like tell me one time.
Well, you know what's funny? Talking about the actual performance itself for you against Buckley, it was kind of a comparison there because you kind of caught his kick, and
Yeah.
then I think you fired the left hand, and then you put him out. How did that feel, man, in that moment?
What the caught kick giveth, the caught kick taketh away. Like, yeah, like, bro, like, so, it's just funny because I'm like, I've said before, like, you'll never do this to me. And this is the difference between me and Impa. I've been doing this for a long, long, long time. You're not going to spin kick me with a caught kick. Like, no. No, that's not a thing. But we trained really hard for this one, man. We were more than ready. Everything felt sharp. So it's just funny because like he's the entire time he's throwing 1,000 punches. He's doing the most. And I'm talking to him the entire fight. Like none of this is working. So it's he talked a lot of trash. It's just fun to get in there and prove to a guy like not to be a dick, man, but there are levels to this. And like I respect you as a fighter, but like you haven't gotten on my level yet.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask you how you felt about the fight. Have you gone back and watched it since you've actually had the fight, or no? You haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah, it's fine.
How did you feel about the first round? Like, how did you feel how the fight was going? I'm curious.
In the fight, I felt great. I felt fine because like I didn't take any damage. Like he's doing a bunch. He's not landing anything. Like he's missing most. He's hitting my guard. He's not landing clean. And I feel like every time I touched him, he felt it. And he came out. We knew we thought he'd be a little less active. We thought he'd be trying to save his gas tank and kind of stretch it out longer. And so, that caught me off guard. He definitely he came out throwing way more than I expected. I thought he'd try to save his gas tank a little bit more and pace himself. But midway through the first round, DC is like, I was talking to him. I told him, like, bro, I'm bored. Like none of this, like I told him I'm bored. Like none of this is a thing. Like he's throwing 15 punch combos that aren't hitting anything. I'm like, bro, like I'm bored. Like this is not not to talk shit, no disrespect, but I genuinely didn't feel threatened at any point in that fight.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I was actually live streaming. I sent you the clip of me reacting to your finish, but people were calling me biased, but I was comparing your fight to Josh Emmett, Calvin Kattar, and basically what that comparison is I don't know if you remember that fight too much, but Josh Emmett won the fight. A lot of people thought Calvin Kattar won. And what kind of won Emmett the fight was a lot of punches on the forearms of Calvin Kattar. And I was saying on my live stream, I thought you clearly won the first round because even though Buckley was throwing a lot of volume, I thought you were landing the better shots and Buckley was going off the arms a lot. Is that the way you saw it too?
And I felt it that way in the fight. And, I thought like every time I touched him, it hurt him more. At the end of the first round, between rounds, Eric Nixon is telling me, like, he's like, hey, man, I know you're not getting hurt. I know it's not touching you. But he's like, you got to think about the optics. And he's like, think about optics. Eric is always big about the optics of the fight. Like, just because you're like something's going a certain way doesn't mean everyone else sees it. And just the way I fight, man, like I roll a lot, I move a lot, especially when I'm defending. If you hit me, I'm somebody who I allow myself to move with the punch to mitigate damage. So like I'm doing, things I do to like protect myself. People are like, oh, he's knocking you off balance. I'm like, well, not really. I can either try to sit here and take the punch, or I can move with it and do it. So he's like, I know Eric's like between rounds. Like, I know you're fine. I know you're doing your thing. But let's think about the optics of the fight. Like I need you to be a little bit more in it, a little bit more aggressive in certain areas, because we'll give a round away on accident by like being fine, but like not, it doesn't look as great. Because it's funny, man. I sit down, somebody put a clip together of like I slowed down the footage, and you see him hitting my guard, missing punches, everything. It's like a fucking it's a minute and a half clip of him just missing nonstop these exchanges. And I sent it to like DC and Joe Rogan and stuff and asked them about it. And Dan Hardy, they're like, yeah, because like even Rogan and DC were like, yeah, man, like in the moment it looks different, but when you like slow it down and see, he wasn't being effective. But in the moment, it's hard to see. So like it's just definitely one of those things. I felt great though. I'm like, he's not touching me, he's not hitting me, he can't hurt me. Like I felt absolutely phenomenal. But I gotta remember, like sometimes optics get you in trouble.
Yeah, we've seen that. Judges needed. Yeah, we've seen that far too many times. And the judges at UFC 282, which we'll talk about a little bit later, in this interview, were pretty crazy that night. So thank God you didn't go to the judges. So you go out, you get the big win. Let me ask you this, and this is something I wanted to ask you in the lead up to the fight as well. How did you feel about being on the prelims? Because I thought this card, the bout order was a little bit strange. And I thought, you probably should have been further up on the card, if not on the main card. How did you feel going into this fight? Did you feel like disrespected at all being on the prelims, or?
I don't really care enough to be disrespected. I thought it was weird. I don't care enough about it to be disrespected. Like at this point, it doesn't really affect my pay, so I don't really care.
True.
But it was just weird to like be behind Rosa, which on prelim, which is strange. And
Yeah.
then you have Paddy Pimblett in a co-main event. I'm like, what Frankenstein universe have I woken up in where this is a thing? Like that was kind of a slap in the face, but I'm like, you know what? I get to go home earlier, and then like, my pay doesn't change. So fuck it. It was weird though. Weird.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
thought.
I'm behind Rosa. I'm like, well, he's got a curfew. Like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit bizarre, and I wanted to ask you about it. So now you got this win over Buckley. I know you kind of fought back, outside the rankings. There's a lot of guys who will cry and say, I'm not fighting anybody behind me. You took Buckley. You were in the top 15. He's probably somewhere right outside the top 15. Now you get this win over Buckley. I already kind of know the answer to this because we've kind of spoken a little bit after the fight. But who do you want next after this one?
yeah, I already said it earlier. Ideally, my next fight ideally is Dricus Du Plessis. Du Plessis.
Yeah.
I think it's just a good fight. We were supposed to fight before, but I broke my wrist and kind of put an end to that. Before this fight, we were one apart in the rankings. So he jumped up and he's like, "Oh, I want to fight up." I'm like, "No, you just fought up." The way it usually works is you defend your spot and then you fight up. Then you go back to defending your spot, then you fight up. So I'm like, "No, bro, I'm due for a fight up, and you're due for a defense. Everyone else damn near is booked. Like, I want Dricus, but for real, like, man, just at this point, I'm 4-1. I put on some good shows. I'm like, let's get a fight night main event, man. Like, I think that's definitely worthy of a fight night main event. Like, let me have that. Me and Dricus 5 rounds. It'll be a good show for the fans. It'll be a hell of a fight. I just think we're in position to do that. So why not?
Yeah, that's very true. How do you feel you match up with Dricus?
I think he doesn't want the fight because he knows I'm a bang. Like style wise, I'm hard to take down. I'm even harder to submit, and I'm hard to hurt standing up. And I've got a gas tank for 5. I've never lost a 5-round fight, so I'm like, let's do this. I think for that reason he's not about it. He's like, there are easier fights out there. But the way it works, you're due for defending your spot, and I'm due for moving up, challenge up. So, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, the only thing that I thought that fight made the most sense, and I thought you would probably get that fight, but now we got a little situation where I don't know if you saw the news from yesterday. It was supposed to be Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa contract negotiation issues. So I think there's a chance, that just a slight chance. I don't know. It kind of makes sense now just because if they want to keep Robert Whittaker on that card, but they said he may not stay on the card. They may do Whittaker versus Du Plessis. But let's say hypothetically they didn't do that. Let's say hypothetically they want to keep Robert Whittaker on that card and they offered you Robert Whittaker. I know that'd be a massive jump up. I think Whittaker's ranked number 2 behind Adesanya now. Is that a fight you'd be willing to take in Perth, Australia?
If they pay me a lot more than what I'm making. Like, here's the thing. I am a mercenary by nature. Like, that's like prize fighter / mercenary. Like, bro, if my pay goes up substantially, I would fight anyone. And I mean anyone. I'd probably fight my son. And I'm like, look, man, like, you'll get over it. Like, let's go. So, hey, man, if my pay goes up substantially, I will say yes. That probably won't be the case because I think that's the issue with Costa. About like he's on a bad contract. His
Yeah.
contract, 7-fight contract, he's making 70 and 70. I'm like, bro, you got hosed. Like whoever
Yeah.
negotiated that was like drinking into sleep at the wheel. That is rough.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of fans like attacking him. And I'm like, people got to pump the brakes a little bit
Bro,
because,
that dude's like been like number 2, number 3 in the world. He's fighting for 70 and 70. I'm like, bro, I wouldn't do it either, honestly. But
yeah.
I get it. Like I'm not even mad at him. Like I wouldn't do it either. Like I would not.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Michal Oleksiejczuk, I think is how you pronounce his name. He recently called you out. I texted you about it the other day. UFC Vegas 66. He got the win over Cody Brundage. Called you out afterwards. You put out some tweets saying you take the fight. Is that a matchup you'd be interested in, or are you just kind of like whatever just to stay active?
But I'll fight whoever. Like the goal is to go up. But like if you want to call me out, first of all, you beat Cody Brundage. Stop it. Like stop. No, stop it. You beat Cody Brundage. You stop this. Like don't be that guy. Like I'm not. I'm gonna be a dick to Cody Brundage, but it's Cody Brundage. Like and B, I'm like fuck it, man. If they'll pay me and it's whatever. I want to fight up, but I got no issue just fighting a guy. I'll beat him up too.
Hey, man, if it whatever gets you paid, I guess, right?
Dude, I am just out here hunting things for money. Like I'm like, hey man, have gloves, we'll travel. Like if you say we'll pay you, I'll be like, sign me up.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. We'll have to, when your next fight gets announced, we'll obviously talk to you. I'll hit you up then, and we'll talk about it then.
Isn't that his first fight at middleweight?
I don't know. I honestly
I
don't
think
know. I
it
don't
is.
think so. No, didn't he
Yeah,
fight? He
because he
fought
fought
Sam Alvey last.
at
That wasn't at
205.
light heavyweight, right?
It was a catchweight.
I'm not sure. I can't remember, but he fought
Yeah, I
Sam
think it's
Alvey
his
his last
first
fight.
fight at middleweight. You don't fight up after one fight,
Yeah, I thought it was kind of
especially
interesting.
against a really unranked person who was like, I don't think Cody Brundage was anywhere near the rankings, was he?
No, he was nowhere near. And Cody Brundage came in on short notice, I believe, as well.
Oh, what the fuck? This guy. Like, I don't know whether to be like proud I got called out, or you like, should I feel disrespected? Like, I haven't. At first, like, oh, my first call out. Then I was like, wait a minute, like, what's happening here? Like, yeah.
Yeah, my thoughts were he saw, you had a big win at UFC 282. He saw you're, right up there in that top 15. Maybe you're acquirable is my thought, is what he was thinking. He said, why not call this guy out and see what happens?
Yeah, I guess I'm not mad. I'm like, fuck it, whatever. Like I said, have gloves, we'll travel.
Well, there's a million other things I want to ask you about. Your teammate, I believe, Roman Dolidze, trains at Extreme Couture with you guys full time, or is it part time, or what is it?
He's like, when he's in town, yeah, like right. I think his next fight he's going to Thailand
Okay.
to train. Roman's off being like the vagabond of Georgia. Like he's like the Georgian Ryu. Like
obviously you saw him step in. You were there on short notice against Jack Hermansson. How did that feel for you being there, considering you had just stepped in on short notice against Jack Hermansson, unfortunately lost? Roman Dolidze gets that same opportunity. It seems like Jack Hermansson can't keep an opponent and gets that win. How did that feel to be there? I'm assuming you were happy. I know you were saying I'm a little bit petty. I was very happy to see Roman get that win.
I'm really petty, and like I've said before, like I'm American as fuck. So people are like, "Oh, you got Roman to win because you couldn't." I'm like, "Yes, I couldn't get the win." So being American as fuck, I went out and found an Eastern European man who could win the war for me. Like that is what we do in this country. So I went out, I found Roman. Roman won this fight. I'm like, still a win in my book. Like there you go. But it was happy to see him get that, man. Roman's a good dude. I love him to death, and that fight definitely changes his life. So like he's really good dude. And it was nice to be there and to be able to help out because like I think I was the first person really to run into like the new style for Jack Hermansson because after the Sean fight, his style has changed. It's completely different. And with Darren Till pointing out me stepping in, I was the first person to run into it. But knowing that, I was like, okay, so with Roman, like with limited time we had, we're like, okay, this is what to expect. This is what I didn't expect, and kind of to plan for that. And then he's being there for the fight. Like, okay, like he's in there. He's like, yeah, it's weird as fuck fighting him now. Like this new hats off to Jack. This new style is weird as fuck. It's very weird. It's very awkward. Like just with his attributes, it's a very awkward style. It's a very like weird type of fight. So being able to be there and be like, okay, man, like this is what we've trained for. This is what we saw. This is what we knew. This is how to make the adjustments. It was really cool to do that because now I know that I have the answer for that.
Yeah. What did you think of that finish? I thought that was a pretty interesting finish to see the calf slicer, the reversal, the calf slicer flatten out Jack Hermansson and just pounding him out that way. What did you think of that?
I was fucked up. I was like, that's disrespectful, man. That's shit you do in practice to white belts. Like, you don't do that in fights. Like, I'll do that calf slicer and like that flattening out to like white belts and shit, being like an ass just on the mat messing around. But like, to do it in a pro fight against a rank, a top 10 guy, I was like, you're a dick. Like,
yeah, I don't ever remember seeing that ever happen in the UFC.
Charles got it on somebody once. He got it on somebody.
Oh, I do remember that, but I think it ended up being kind of like a submission. Like he submitted him that way rather than like
he finished it. But yeah, it's just like, geez, like that's it's not something you really try in a fight. I was like, oh god. Yeah, all right, whatever. But I mean, Roman's a hell of a grappler, so the fact he pulled it off, I'm not super surprised. I'm just like, that's quite questionable decision making, like really disrespectful. I believe it's really disrespectful. So.
Yeah, dude, I think it was actually, I mean, this is massive. I was talking about it the other day when his next fight got announced. They announced Roman Dolidze, Marvin Vettori. For Roman to go all the way from outside the top 15 to now he's in a borderline, I don't want to say it's a number one contender fight, but it's damn near close because if he goes out there and beats Marvin Vettori, Marvin Vettori I think is ranked number 3 or 4 right now in the
Yeah,
rankings.
he beats Marvin. He's a fight away.
Yeah, and maybe even depending on, let's say Adesanya beats Pereira and they don't do a trilogy, Adesanya's already kind of fought in everyone, so
Yeah,
they could be right in there.
He just changed his life. I'm happy for him, man. It's really exciting to see. Like, oh, holy shit.
Yeah, for sure. I thought, I could not believe that when I saw the news for UFC 286, Roman Dolidze, Marvin Vettori, I'm like, what a story in, roughly 6 months it'll be by the time he actually fights Marvin Vettori, be March of next year. I said, what a trajectory to step in on short notice against Jack, and then next thing you know, he's fighting like the number 4 guy in the world.
It's the greatest thing about MMA, man. It's got the highest highs and lowest lows. When you're on those highs, man, like your life changes so fast.
Yeah, and I also wanted to get your take on this, and this is kind of why I bring up the fight as well. I saw an interview with Sean Strickland where he said Marvin Vettori is probably coming to Extreme Couture. How would that work out? Do you have any idea?
That's so strange because apparently he's coming out, but Roman's actually doing his next camp in Thailand. So I'm like, this is really strange.
Yeah,
so I'm not really sure what the logistics are of this. I'm just kind of like, I'll play this by ear. But it's who knows, man? It's strange. Like I know Roman wants to trade out there. I'm probably gonna go to Thailand in January, hang out there for a month, do some training. So I guess we'll just figure it out as we go.
Yeah, I just thought that was an interesting side note because you're in Roman's corner, and now Marvin Vettori's coming to Extreme Couture.
I don't know. I'm like, this is very strange. Like I will handle this as it comes up. I'm like, I'm not gonna think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to turn Dolidze into another Buckley situation, right?
Nah, Roman's my boy. Like Roman's actually I was like trying to be a good partner to Buckley, and he's a dick. Now Roman's actually my boy, man. Like Roman's one of those guys. Like Roman and Strickland are 2 guys I definitely wouldn't fight. Like it's just like no, like on a personal level, I couldn't do that. So no, I'm not worried about that. I'm just like, this is just strange. Like I don't know what's happening, and like no one wants to talk about it. I'm just like, all right, well, I'll deal with this later.
Yeah, it is an interesting dynamic. Speaking of Sean Strickland, he just had a fight last Saturday against Jared Cannonier. How did you feel about the decision? Did you watch the fight live? I'm assuming you did.
I did. Yeah. It's just frustrating. Like, sorry, it's been a long day. So when I watch teammates fight, I usually, if it's a close round, I usually tend to go against my teammates because I'm aware that I have a bias. So if it's a close round, I'll probably lean towards the other guy unless it's pretty clear. But I even had Sean 3-2. Like, even like kind of like leaning towards Jared and some. I thought he landed better. He landed more. He landed better. And he does have a good point. Like Sean is like lily white, so like any damage is gonna show on Sean. And like he got scratch. He's got a big scratch on his nose, which was bleeding. So it's not like he's damaged. His nose just got scratched and he's bleeding. And then if you hit him on a leg or whatever, he marks up. So like if not much is happening, people go, we'll go off with damage. You're like, well, he just damages easily. You look at him, he said today, he said he gets damaged by fall. If he goes outside, it's too cold. He like turns red and starts bleeding. So I'll definitely give him that. Like I think it's just, I don't know. Judges are weird, man. Like it wasn't like the worst robbery of all time, but I've seen the majority of the internet seem to think it was 3-2. And it's just, it's hard to, once again, it's like what's Eric said, optics. Like the optics of the fight are not always indicative of what's going on. And like, it sucks because, Shet's half a check and, it messes with his career trajectory. But as Eric said, man, we got to be a little bit more aware of optics and how we look in fights and how things look. So as a team, Eric's been trying to push that more after the last 2 weeks because like I think like there's sometimes we'll be in situations and fights to where we're comfortable. Like we're such an experienced group of guys, such a great room that we're very comfortable with certain bad situations or wherever, and we're doing fine. And we lose track of like how it looks to people who aren't necessarily used to being in there. But yeah, man, it just sucks, man. Like I had him up 3-2.
Yeah, full disclosure, I actually scored it for Jared Cannonier. But when I looked at the fight, I said, any of the rounds really could have went either way. I thought they were so close. I thought Strickland was kind of getting through with that jab, landing some on the forearms, and then Cannonier was like hitting a lot of air, but then chopping some of the legs.
Yeah, it's
good.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, but also, I hate the new narrative that has now come about since Sean O'Malley versus Piotr Yan, where now you have any cut, you have any busted up nose, there's any blood coming out, all of a sudden you lost the entire round. I hate that new narrative that has come about. It's actually driving me nuts because essentially what, not only the commentary is saying, now all the fans are saying, they're being like, well, that guy's bleeding more, even though it was from one shot. And then this guy's landed a bunch of shots on the other guy, but he's not bleeding. So therefore the guy who's bleeding loses the round. It doesn't make sense at all.
It's so frustrating because let's honestly, I benefit from this thinking, but I'm also aware, fully aware that it's such a stupid way because I don't bleed, man. It's really hard to make me bleed. The only time I've ever bled in fights is when I've been headbutted. The headbutt will cut me, but you're not gonna cut me with punches. You're not I just got skinned like an old shoe, man. I just benefits of being black. But but at the end of the day, man, there's some people who just show damage. The lighter you are, you're gonna show damage. Like Sean, pasty white, dude shows damage if you touch him. It's damage is not, you got cut by a glove and now you're bleeding. That's not damage. Damage is if I fucking break your nose or I smash your lips open and now you're bleeding. If I scratch your nose, that is not damage. And that's not. It's so the entire basis of the judging system, and it is the fucking Sean O'Malley Petr Yan fight.
That's exactly what's doing it.
That fight has created a ridiculous narrative of oh well, the guy bleeding loses. You're like, what? No, what do you mean? There are some people I train with who, if you look at them wrong, their nose will start bleeding. So if I jab, you get one good jab, and you start bleeding, but you're beating me up. Are you winning? Am I winning the round because you're bleeding? No, that is not.
I think where the confusion comes from is people confuse damage with solely visible damage. Because
yes,
if you bust a guy on the chin, like what you did to Buckley, I know it ended up being a finish, but let's say it wasn't a finish, that was severe damage. But there was no blood from that. You know what I'm saying?
People have you're right. People have an obsession with visible damage and blood. Visible damage, I think whatever, but blood is not indicative of true damage. There are so many people, Cody Garbrandt's a bleeder. You hit him in the nose, he gets surgery on his nose because the motherfucker's a bleeder. I can sneeze on him and he'll bleed. He's not hurt, he's fine, but he's just a bleeder. He's a fucking bleeder. One of my guys, Corey Hendricks, PFL. I've never met somebody who you can flick in the face and he just starts pouring blood. He's not hurt, he just bleeds easily. That doesn't mean I'm winning. Corey's massive. If me and Corey traded our best punch, I'd probably be hurt way more, but Corey would be gushing blood. But if you're going by damage, you're Chris won that exchange. No, I'm probably halfway knocked the fuck out. Trying to figure out where I am. But we get obsessed with just seeing blood. Blood means he's doing no. And you can't be too mad, but you have to understand. I wish people judging would understand and have a big. That's why I think fighters should be judges. You have a better understanding of what certain strikes do and what actual damage is versus superficial damage.
Yeah, I've actually been kind of sympathetic to that argument. It sounds good. But the only problem with that is then you could have bias because most fighters are in the gyms training with different guys. And then you have a whole other.
You would have to have guys removed from the sport. Guys who have fought who are removed from the sport. Then it can be different. And I mean, it's weird, man. There's no good way around it because you do have the issue of bias and whatnot. But I need to know. I want the guy judging my fight to have some form of intimate understanding of what's going on. Because if all you have is you've watched a few videos, you read a fucking manual, you've got no idea what's happening.
Yeah, that is true. And one thing I've been throwing out there for a lot of people who are saying, oh, well, the damage this and the damage that, is I don't know if you caught Rafa Garcia versus Machete, where he cut open the side of his head. And supposedly he lost 20% of his blood. I don't know if you saw it. It was just gushing out. There was blood everywhere. It was on the prelims, I think, of this past Saturday. It might have been on the main card, but there was blood everywhere. It was the most blood pretty much.
No, I've never seen. That's horrific.
Yeah, it just was just one. I think it was an elbow that cut him open right on the side of the head. Apparently, it cut an artery, and so the blood was just squirting everywhere. But he was
just
clearly winning the
bleeding
fight.
out.
Yeah, yeah. Supposedly, they came out after the fight and they said he lost 20% of his total blood, which is crazy. But he clearly won the fight. Like I can't remember if he won the second and third round or he won all 3 rounds, but he clearly won. It was not up for debate. And I said to people, well, if you want to base it off the damage argument, then I guess Machete won, even though he really lost. He got dominated for the last 2 rounds just because of that simple cut that was just gushing blood. So that's an argument that I've been now throwing out there when people are constantly saying, oh, but the cut and the blood.
I think more so you have to ask yourself, does the damage change the course of the fight? Like, look at it this way. Say, we'll use the Buckley example, but say I hit Buckley, he doesn't get knocked out, but he's hurt for the rest of the fight. Did the damage caused change the course of the fight? Did it change the course of the round? Versus Machete, he lands the elbow, cool, but did that damage he inflict change the course of the round? Like, no, if you're still getting beat up and the guy's just bleeding, like that's not really, your damage means nothing if you're still losing the fight.
Exactly.
Like,
I agree 100%.
if it doesn't change the course of the round, there's like it's damage, but it's not like overriding. If that damage change, like, he gets cut and now dude's like curled up on a ball or he's running, protecting himself, not doing anything, it's changed the course of the round now. But if you cut him, he's still beating the shit out of you. Like, well, you're still losing, bro. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Dude, I blame it all on Sean O'Malley, Piotr Jan. It's 100%. Even the commentary team.
I'm fine blaming anything on Sean O'Malley. So it's fucking Sean O'Malley's fault. Totally fine with it.
Yeah, because even on Saturday, the commentary team, the guy Rafa Garcia who had the cut, was clearly winning. And even the commentary team was saying, well, I don't know if it's enough to make up for that cut. And I'm like, what is going on here? They're supposed to know what's going on.
It's skin. It cuts. It happens. Like, if he's still beating his ass, like, you're fucking Sean O'Malley, man.
All his fault. It's 100% his fault.
Ruining things for me. Like, oh god, everything got wonky with the Sean O'Malley decision. I mean, everything's been him fucking winning that fight disrupted the timeline.
Dude, like, I don't know what's been going on since then.
No, he disrupted the timeline, and now we're in the bad future. Like, once again, it's Sean O'Malley's fault.
Dude, it's crazy because now I want to move on from this damage topic, but now I swear I'm hearing about it every fight. I'm hearing about it every week. Well, the damage this and the damage that and this blood and that blood and the cut, and then the commentary team's going in on it. So now, the commentary team has a massive sway over the fans who are watching and listening. Yeah. So it's just crazy, but I 100% blame it all on Sean O'Malley.
Thanks a lot, Sean O'Malley.
Yeah.
Again, Jesus, Lee.
Moving on to some more talk about judging. I'm assuming you saw Paddy Pimblett, Jared Gordon.
Ooh.
What did you think about that decision? Because my personal decision, this is one of the worst robberies I've seen. I don't know if you saw Diego Sanchez versus Ross Pearson from like 2012.
Back in the day?
It was a terrible decision for Diego Sanchez. The Paddy Pimblett, Jared Gordon decision, I thought was one of the worst decisions I've ever seen. And I'm not one to scream robbery for mostly any fights. But I thought this was a clear robbery. What was your opinion on that?
That was I don't usually say round, but that was a fucking robbery. Like that was like Point Break / Heat type levels of robbery to where, like, I don't understand how you can confuse that and how do you mess that up? Like, he arguably lost 2 rounds. Clearly, you can arguably say he lost 3 rounds. Like, depends on how you want to score it. But he dropped at least 2 rounds, clearly, and I don't understand. I don't.
I couldn't believe it. For me, a lot of these fights that people call robberies, I see it and I'm like, it was close enough where it could have done this or could have done that. When it went to the scorecards there, I said, okay, Paddy Pimblett lost. There's absolutely no way the judges can mess this one up. And then when I heard the scorecards and then they say Paddy Pimblett, I was like, for the first time, just for the entire time I've ever been watching the sport, there's a lot of people who are saying, oh, the UFC's rigging fights and they're doing this and, these fights aren't legitimate. And, for certain fights, it always happens. This was the first time in my life that I was like, I've really started to question it because I'm like, this is awfully suspicious. You know what I mean?
What I think it is more so than rigging? I think, unfortunately, sorry.
I have a feeling I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
The crowd.
That's a big one. Crowd and star power. once they go hand to hand, I guess. Like the bigger star you are, the more people in the crowd you're gonna have, and that's definitely so. Before you get there, these judges are aware of the sport. They're aware of who the favorite is, so that's gonna be a bias there. Second, the crowd, like judges should be separated, which is hard. You want to fight be ringside. So I even said people like judges being ringside, I think is stupid. For MMA, I think it's entirely stupid. It's unnecessary. Boxing, you can get away with it, whatever, because you're only watching two guys punch each other. MMA, there's so much space in an octagon. So there's like how many like dividers are in there that block view? It's a big space, and there's so much going on: grappling, boxing, kickboxing, wrestling. Judges don't need to be ringside. You got like three 60 to 70-year-old people out here watching from ringside. Where have you ever watched a fight from ringside?
Have I?
Yeah.
I've not necessarily. I've been to events, but I've always been like that first elevation. I've never been like close up on the floor or
Ringside is the
anything.
worst seat in the house.
That's why I've always had the first elevation, I guess.
There is nowhere worse to watch a fight than ringside. It's absolutely for MMA. It's absolutely terrible. Like your vision's obscured all the time. It's a shit thing to have to do. So I think having 60 and 70-year-old like people watching ringside is just the most like exposed to the crowd and everything else. It's just the most horrible idea ever. Like we have to get past it. Like I was thinking before, I was talking about it. Like, what if you separate the judges, have them away from the crowd, like you don't have the crowd bias involved, and like judges should be able to watch a fight on multi-panels.
That's what I've always said too.
You should be watching the fight live because it's a lie. You should be watching on 3 panels with 3 separate views. You can like see every angle of the fight. And the idea I had was like every judge should have a button that you can press up to 5 times in a round. When you press this button, it takes a snapshot from that moment and up to 5 seconds back. So right now, if I hit it, it would record this in the last 5 seconds before this. At the end of the round, you can do up to 5 times, 25 seconds. At the end of the round, as soon as the bell goes, that judges up to 5 clips play. So if there's something you didn't see, a moment you missed, like something you couldn't see clearly, hit the button. Like boom, at the end of the round, it plays those clips for you to see, like, okay, this is what happened here, this is what happened here, this is what happened here. Still gives you 30 seconds to make your decision, write it out, hand it in. Like, I think you're asking 60-year-old people to like make snap decision calls on shit they can't see from the worst vantage. It's a stupid idea. Like we're not in boxing. Like some things we have to lose some of our boxing heritage. As much as I love boxing, MMA needs to move away from some of its. We borrowed a lot from boxing when we started, and we haven't gotten away from it. It's a different sport. They tried to differentiate ourselves from boxing so much over the years, but we still have really outdated hangovers. We need to get holdovers. We need to get rid of those and move forward.
Yeah, I like that idea about the button, but another idea I thought of was essentially you can keep the judges ringside because I feel like that's never going to change, but add some more that are, let's say 3 other judges or let's say at least 2 other judges because you have to have an odd number. Let's have them in the arena somewhere in a room that's quiet, watching on those monitors. And even if they don't want to immediately change to that, let's get some data and see the difference between those judges' scorecards who are watching from those panels, from those multi-views in the back rooms and quiet, compared to those ringside judges, and at least start getting the ball rolling on something.
That would be a phenomenal idea. 100%. Let's experiment. Like at the next fight, have 3 more judges separated. Let them do it. Like let's see like what the scores come in as, because like something has to change. Like this. Fucking Sean O'Malley broke the timeline, and now it's all exposed for everybody to see. But now we're aware that like something has to change. Like this can't keep going on. It's like you're messing with guys' careers, you're messing with guys' money. People are investing 3 to 6 months between camps, like getting ready for a fight, and to lose that because you don't know how to do your job or you can't. It's something needs to change.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also, we got to start with accountability. We never even get an explanation for some of these decisions. I would love an explanation.
There's no system of accountability for Nevada. Like there's literally the judges don't answer to anyone. They have there's no one to answer to. It's yeah, I can turn my score in. I could write zeros and like go home. I still get paid.
Yeah, I heard Doug Crosby scored round 2, 10-8 for Buckley against you at 282.
Bro, that dude, oh my God. He came
And
to the
that,
gym. He
go
came to the
ahead.
gym one day. He came to the gym one day and he was talking about how he wants to talk to fighters and explain he just did it on his own. He wants to explain the scoring system and everything. So he wanted to talk to fighters about it. He was trying to explain the system to them. So I swear to God, it was like I ended up walking away a few minutes in. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like this, I don't want to like rip on dude, be disrespectful. This dude had no idea what the fuck he was talking about. You'd ask him like, okay, he's like, oh, he's like, oh, well, if nothing's going on, there's no control, you got to go to damage. We're like, okay, well, what do you consider? He's like, okay, well, what's the difference in damage? He's like, well, that depends. What is damage really? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking to me about right now? Like this dude, bro, it was like the weirdest. I just walked, like someone's just walked away. And I'm just like, this dude has no idea what he's saying to us. And like, I appreciate you trying to be involved, but like you are not. The dude's a stunt man. He got no fight experience. He's a fucking stuntman.
Yeah, I've heard
So
multiple
like,
things about him trying to like make friends with fighters, trying to be in favor of the promotion. It's always those stories
bro,
linger
it's so
there.
weird.
And that's just a terrible, just background to have, to be going in gyms and trying to like hang out with fighters and make, you know what I mean? Because it's just
Yeah,
on massive
it's not a
conflict
good
of
look.
interest.
Well, I mean, like he didn't endear himself to anybody because we all were just like, who the fuck is this? How did you get in here? It was insane. It was insane. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, but I've
But
heard
yeah,
plenty of stories about Doug Crosby. Apparently, he also thinks he's the smartest guy in every single room as well. That's what I've
bro,
heard.
I've never seen someone try to like wax poetic about like scoring, and I'm like, bro, it's not that serious. Like he really thinks he's like the Plato of like MMA judging, and I'm like, all right, man, like
It's
let's
awful.
the allegory of the scorecards. I'm like, oh my God, bro, you shut the fuck up. I'm like, leave this place.
All right, Chris. So a couple more things I want to ask you about. So Jiri Prochazka came to train at your gym, and he ended up injuring his shoulder. It's training at some sort. Were you there when this injury happened? Did you see this happen?
I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about that one, but yeah, that sucked. That was ooh.
It was
I
bad.
think this guy, it sucked. It sucked. It was just a freak accident, man. It fucking sucked. Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah, that's super unfortunate. I was really looking forward to that Glover Teixeira rematch.
I was excited, man. Like I thought their first fight was amazing, and like yeah, it's just like, dude, that oh my God, yeah, that was it was guys, it wasn't great at all.
Yeah,
It was
well, that's
really
what they're
bad.
saying.
Yeah.
It's like the worst shoulder injury ever,
Oh,
supposedly.
bro, it
So
was yeah. I mean, in all fairness, I'll give you credit. That dude is a fucking soul. Like that dude's got some screws loose because he took that shit like a champ. And I'm like, I don't think your arms are supposed to do that. And he's just like taking it like a champ, man.
yeah, let me ask you this. I saw it somewhere like after he injured his shoulder, apparently he was like, I'm still fighting. Like he was acting like nothing was
Yeah.
like he wasn't gonna miss the fight or anything.
No, he was fully planning on like, going back to training or whatever. And they're just like, bro, you're not fighting anytime soon. Stop it. But he's like Jiri is built different, man. Like that dude is I don't even know how to I wouldn't want to meet him in a dark alley because he'd probably have a sword, first of all. Excuse me. And second, like, yeah, that dude's just like his brain works completely differently. So like fuck, man, yeah. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah, that dude's just different.
Yeah, that's just. Jiri is just Jiri. We've seen him for the last couple of years. He's a very unique guy for sure.
There's no one else in the sport like Jiri.
Let me ask
Sean talked to him. He's like, you really lock yourself in a room by yourself in the dark with no food for like days? He's just like, yes. Like, hear the battle of demons. We're like, holy shit, bro.
Dude, so he's like, I know he always seems weird on the outside, but like when you were with him, he's definitely like that.
He's weird as fuck. He's a nice dude, but I'm like, bro, I think you would like. I'm not sure what's keeping you from killing everyone in the room. Like, I'm pretty sure he's got like swords in his car. Like, that dude is out there, but like he is. no one can. I will like anyone ever questions like the heart or like the balls of Jiri. I will fight you myself because that dude is just fucking like. I'm like, no, you can never question that man. His shoulders in shreds. Like it'll be fine. I'm still gonna fight. We're just like, what? No. Like, what are you doing?
Well, since he was out, your other teammate, Magomed Ankalaev, ends up getting the fight, ends up going in there and fighting. How is it slipping my mind right now?
Yeah.
Jan Blachowicz. I kept wanting to say Glover Teixeira. I'm like, I know it's not Glover Teixeira, but they got changed. How did you feel? Did you watch that fight? I'm assuming you watched it. And how did you feel about that decision?
I did. I thought Jan won like the first 2 rounds, and then the championship round, I think he lost. I think he lost 3, 4, 5. I think Ankalaev was like, "Oh, my leg is gone," so he got a little bit smarter, and he won. I thought he won 3 of the 5 rounds, and once again, judging is MMA judging. Yeah, like it's. I mean, it's nothing such worse than like when you. I've never. Okay, so I'll say this. I've never lost a fight that I never won a fight and thought I lost. Anytime I've won a fight, I was like, okay, like I think I won the fight. I never won a fight and been like, nah, man, I lost. Like, if you think you lost a fight that you won, you probably fucking lost. Even Jan was like, nah, man. Like, Jan was like, I lost. Like, yeah, he's a warrior. And he understands, like, bro, I lost that fight. Like, it happens. Like, even he's like, I lost. And, like, the only people who didn't understand that were the judges. Because the fans saw it. The fighters saw it. The guy who won saw it. But like it's apparently the judges just score things based. Who knows what they're scoring things on? But it's absolutely insane, man. Like it's
for
the
sure.
last month of scoring has been like just atrocious.
Yeah, I thought I scored it for Ankalaev, but I did kind of see like those first 3 rounds were I think the first 2, or no, it was the second and third I think I had for Jan. And then the first one was like razor close. And then 4 and 5 were clearly Ankalaev. And then 5 was like a 10-8 Ankalaev. But I did kind of see it. Like I didn't think it was the worst decision ever, but I thought Ankalaev should have ended up winning.
It wasn't as bad as like there are worse decisions. But I think like it was pretty clear to everyone not judging the fight that Ankalaev won that fight. And it's there have definitely been worse decisions for sure. So I wouldn't call that a robbery. I'd say that's a gift.
Yeah.
Like that was gifted. Like I think that doesn't qualify as a robbery, but I still think it was pretty clearly done. It was done pretty clearly like wrong. But this, like I said, man, this last 2 months of judging, 2-3 months of judging has just been absolutely insane.
Damn it, Sean O'Malley. That's all I gotta say.
It's Sean O'Malley did it, man. Like honest to God, Sean O'Malley has ruined the timeline. And I don't care what anybody says, all of this is Sean O'Malley's fault.
Do you think, Chris, you can make bantamweight? You think you can get down there somehow?
No, I would like lose all of my organs. Like, it's okay. Guys, it's okay. Like hate if you want, but Aljo will finish this. Like I'm putting my faith in Aljo to correct the timeline. I'm like, you gotta get us back. He's like a Flash. You gotta like go through the Flashpoint paradox. You gotta fix the broken timeline. Aljo can do it, guys. I believe.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see. We'll see what they're going to do with Cejudo. Cejudo may fight Aljo first, and then we'll have to see. And then O'Malley will probably fight the winner. At least that's what it's looking like is going to happen. Let me ask you this: they announced immediately after the fight, and Dana White was shitting all over the main event, which I thought it was a fine fight. Wasn't the craziest fight I've ever seen, but it was a good fight between Jan and Magomed. Dana was shitting all over it. Announces Glover Teixeira, Jamahal Hill. Have you talked to Ankalaev at all? Do you know how he's feeling or reacting to any of this, or you haven't really seen him since?
He's disappointed, man. He was just really disappointed. And like you get it. Like it's you go, he did his job the entire time. He trained for his fight. Then they made it a 5-round fight. So he's like, fine, whatever. Like, it was 5 title fight. He's like, fine, whatever. We're still doing it. Cool. 5-round fight. Goes out there, performs, and like it just sucks, man. He gets shit on by the boss. Hi, Lord. You're on camera. Hi, Lord. She's just like she looks so sweet. It's like why not? You go out there, you perform, then you get shit on by the boss. And then they just kind of give it like, what do you like?
And then it's
I
a
don't even know
draw, and
how
then they give it the title to.
How do you like? I give him so much credit because I don't think I would have handled that as well as he did. Like he handled that very well. He was hurt. He's like, I don't want to fight in Vegas anymore. I get that because these judges out here are wilding. I mean, he realizes those judges are everywhere, but like whatever, Russia. But I think he handled it well, man. Because like that I can only imagine how much that stung. That had to have stung in the worst way possible. Not only that, man, if you go out there, you're beat up, you put on a fight and the boss goes and shits on you, like that's rough.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate you so much for joining. We got to do it more often. Every time after one of these, people are like, when you getting Chris Curtis back on? When you getting him back on? And I always love talking to you, man.
We got to be more regular about this. I'm so bad. Guys, this isn't Joey's fault. This is my fault. Like I get overwhelmed very easily. So like my schedule is just always messed up, especially around fight time. But we'll definitely be better at like doing it more consistently.
Yeah.
But now we text more at least. So we got that going on.
Yeah, and Chris isn't like Paddy Pimblett. He doesn't try to charge me for these interviews either.
No,
So.
no. Whoa. End of the year invoices are coming out. So I'm hitting up everybody.
Well,
I'm going to send Ariel an invoice.
Yeah, could you imagine? I get it. Well, all right, Chris, I appreciate you so much for joining me. Anything, if you want to say, shout out your social medias or anything like that, go ahead, man. Have the last word.
Guys, just find me on Instagram and Twitter, ActionMan513. Drop a line. Welcome to the circus, man. We try to have fun.